bang your head.
Let's get the band back together.
Hey, yeah, I mean, there's something about that. That, by the way, is the Newsboys.
Yeah.
That's the Newsboys.
Yeah, except my quote was from the Blues Brothers.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny. The first time I saw Newsboys was back in the 80s. It was probably around 88. They were still kind of new, fresh from Australia.
Yeah.
And they did a performance at GMA Week, Gospel Music Association Week in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I was there because I was a tour manager, a European tour manager of a lot of Christian. That's why I was there. But anyway, so these guys come on stage, and I have to tell you, it was like a little showcase. What they do, the record companies rent out these bars, clubs that are normally country club, or not country club, but country clubs. Or country bars. And so, and you'll have different, Sparrow will have one place, then Word will have another one, and Forefront, whoever the group might be. And so anyway, on this one, I happened to be at the one show, and here comes Newsboys. And I have to tell you, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I mean, you've got the drummer standing up. You know, he's playing the drum, but he jumps up on his chair and starts playing stand.
Oh, yeah.
And then he does a flip.
Showmanship.
He does a flip all the way in front of the drum and in the band. I mean, I have to say, they're good. I mean, they're good. I mean, the old and the new. I don't know if you know, the original lead vocalist had an alcohol problem.
Yeah. And
so he had to step down. And I'm not sure where he's at now. Last I heard, he had recovered. And so, in fact, Michael Tate from DC Talk, he ended up he had his own band for a little while called Tate. Yep. And then he ended up taking Peter Furler, I think it was Furler, Furler. Yeah, Furler, Furler. Anyway, Pete Furler was the old lead singer. And anyway, Michael Tate took his place and took them to a whole new level. Yeah. And then, but what I really liked, they actually ended up doing an album where they had some old songs, new songs, and then they had Mike and Pete doing lead vocals on the same song and stuff, which I thought was cool. See, that's the Christian. That's how Christians are supposed to be. That's how Christians are supposed to act. You're not accepting sin and yet at the same time. Plus, alcoholism, honestly, it's one of these sins that to me is more of a disease than a sin. Yeah. So if I just want to go out and keep getting drunk to get high because I like getting high, or like smoke dope because I like getting high, then that would be a sin. Yeah, the frat boy on the thrill kind of thing, you know. Right. But if you're a person that got into it and you just have this addiction. Yeah, it turns into that. Right. And it can, and I was fortunate. I don't know if I ever told the story. What saved me from drink when I was in high school, my senior year. Did I tell this story? I don't think so. Okay, I was supposed to go to soccer practice. It was a Friday before a game on Saturday. This is in Germany. In Germany, right? Yeah. In Germany, where everybody drinks beer. Well, yeah, but this was on the American base, and I'm up in the snack bar. That'll get you. And I used to, be friends with the troops. So some of the GIs saw me, and they say, "Oh, there's our homeboy from Philly. There's Philly. Hey, Philly, and me, 17-year young and dumb, got to be the man. Yeah. So they said, man, come here. We're going to finish this in the bathroom. And it was a fifth of Canadian Club whiskey, which is like 100, I think it was 150 proof. Pretty stout stuff. So I'm in the bathroom with these GIs, and you got some black ones, some white ones. We even had a Native American and an Indian there with us, and then there's me. And so they start passing it, and I'm chugging this booze, And so I thought, man, I'm the man. I said, oh, look at Philly, go Philly. And my pride is just.
You're
so
egging
I
you
thought
on.
I have proven my manhood. I'm the man.
Yeah.
I'm the man. So I go back out with my buddies.
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be going to soccer practice, but I wasn't going to make it.
God,
okay?
no.
And so
But
anyway,
dry
I'm
heaves.
still there with some buddies, and here comes these guys back. Hey, they had another bottle.
Oh, God.
And through the grace of God, honestly, I didn't even know about alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
That it's actually a fatal
Oh,
thing.
God,
People
yeah.
die from it.
It will.
Yeah. So anyway, they get me to come with them. I had to prove my manhood once again. I thought I'd done that. I think I'd do it again.
Yeah.
So I go in the bathroom with them, and here we pass, and I'm chugging this booze down, and my family, I don't know what it is, the gene. It has to be from the German side, my mother's side, because my dad was not a good drunk.
Yeah.
He was one of those that cry, a crying drunk is my dad.
Yeah.
He only got drunk maybe 2 times the whole time I knew him.
Yeah.
And it was not pretty.
Yeah. I get
Not
that.
pretty at all.
I understand.
But anyway, so all the Indian guy, he just went nuts. They don't, I mean, it is, honestly, it's true. Native Americans cannot hold alcohol. It just does something.
Yeah.
American Indians, yeah. It does something to them. And then, the second time, 2 of my buddies, now these were freshmen, okay? These like 14-year-old kids. Somehow I convinced them to go in there with us and drink. And so.
These are like 14, 15-year-old?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I'm 17, I'm the leader of the pack. But anyway, I get them in there. So it's the GIs and me and these two high school kid friends of mine. And so it's funny how, that's what I was going to say, it's strange how it affects people differently.
Yeah.
With me, I've never been drunk in my life. I can't know. What happens, I get sick before I get.
Okay. Yeah. Something had to have happened this day you're telling me about.
Yeah, I got sick.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I made my way home, after it got done, I went home. And so I opened my door, and the next door neighbors were over, the lady with her little 3-year-old. Annie wanted a hug. I took the little kid and almost threw her across.
Oh, my God.
Get out of my way, because I'm on my way to the bathroom. And I just start heaving in the bathtub.
Dry heaves?
No. I mean,
they're horrible.
My lunch and everything. And here's my mother. Here's my naive mother. Either that or she was playing me. I don't know. She says, did you eat in the cafeteria again today?
She didn't want to make her little boy.
I did. Yeah. She said, no, I did. And I'm thinking, I've got to be reeking of alcohol. Yeah. All that booze I drank. Did you eat at the cafeteria again today? I said, yeah, Mom. Yeah, I did. So and I'm flushing it.
You're milking it.
I wasn't milking anything except my stomach into the bathtub. So then I go into my bedroom, and I'm laying down, and I'm just feeling horrible. And I hear a knock at the door out there. My mom, oh, hey, John, how are you? Come in. He's in his bedroom. And so my buddy John, he goes in there and says, dude, what happened to you? And I told him, he said, Mrs. Huff, do you have any salt? And he taught me this. He said, lick your hand, and he would pour salt on my hand and have me keep licking.
Really?
Licking, yeah. And so, every 5 minutes or so, I put a new batch of salt on my and lick it and eat it. And in about 45 minutes, I was good to go.
Really?
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. And so there was a party that night. Okay.
Oh my God.
So here I go. I said that's why he came over. I forgot. So I changed clothes, pulled me. We're gone. I'm at the party. I'm good. But the 2 freshmen that had been with us, all of a sudden, at the party, they show up, and these guys are just mad drunk. They're stumbling and laughing and crying, doing all kinds of stuff. Everybody's looking. What happened to these guys? And I'm hiding out in the back, hoping nobody sees me, because I'm the guy who who got them drunk,
Oh God.
and I'm good. Nobody knew anything about me because I'm good.
This man can handle liquor, I guess.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Here's what's interesting, and I praise God for this. If you can turn that into a praise moment, I could not stand the smell of alcohol for 30 years.
There you go. That'll do it.
If I smelled it,
Yep.
I would start gagging.
Wow.
Could not stand the smell of alcohol.
That might save your life.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Now, you'll have a beer with a meal or something like that, right?
Yeah. That's the German thing. Yeah. And beer was there, but there's something about whiskey, that kind of alcohol that when it hit my nostrils, I guess it's the distilled
probably
liquor or whatever alcohol, but it would, honestly, I couldn't get near it. I mean, it wouldn't, and I would just in college, I would just laugh. But I think what that did, it made me susceptible to marijuana. So when I got to college, I never drank. I wouldn't drink.
And you called me the pothead.
But I sure smoked my dope.
Yeah.
I was bad. I mean,
hey, I think it's a far safer vice, if you will, than liquor.
But I don't recommend either because honestly,
no, but of the two.
Yeah, there was a period of time when I honestly thought I would never be able to give up smoking dope because if I smelled it, I was drawn.
Okay.
I became probably to the marijuana smoker the same as an alcoholic to booze. If I smell it, there was something about the smell that was. Do you remember these cartoons, Popeye, or some of these in that era where somebody's cooking something and the smoke comes out and it turns into like a hand.
Yeah.
And the hand goes under and, and does this to someone and it hooks them and brings them over and then make them want to eat it. That's kind of how marijuana affected me. And it was purely the grace of God because the night I got saved, I went into the church that night, Friday night, came out, and have never wanted it again. Yeah. Just didn't want it.
Yeah.
That was totally set free.
That was me a week after.
It was a supernatural.
A week after I knelt at the altar at a Pentecostal church, I was cleaning the next Saturday after Sunday night, cleaning my car out. And I pull a glove box, a bag of pot. And I'm like, I've gone a whole week, never even thought of this, much less been drawn to it.
Yeah.
And that's the power of a changed life.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that same night where I got saved, went forward and received the baptism of the Holy Spirit to freak out all you Baptists. But anyway, I had set up a meeting with a buddy of mine to go see, what's his name? Frank Zappa, 100 Hotels, this movie, 100 Hotels, terrible movie. But anyway, we were going down there, and as we're driving down, he said, man, you want to get high? He said, hey, get the stuff out of the glove compartment. I got it. And I tossed it to him, and I didn't even think about it until the next day when they were all making fun of me for throwing this marijuana. He's trying to drive, roll a joint, and smoke it all the time. And I did not want it. It was like turning down a piece of candy. Yeah. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm holding out another. I just honestly had no, like you said, no desire to get high. Yeah. It's like, it was a supernatural. It's totally a supernatural thing that you can go from not being able to resist or always wanting to the point where I could care less. One of my Christian friends, one of the first friends I knew as a Christian, was back in high school. He was surprised that I knew some of the better blends and cuts of marijuana, as some about Panama Red and Colombia and Sticky Bud. And I said, do you smoke it? He says, no. He says, I like having a clear mind. I like being able, he says, anything that messes up my ability to think and reason and perceive, I just don't like it. Yeah. And now I had a buddy, I was summer going into my senior year. He's a year younger than me. We're co-workers. His older brother was my boss, but we've been out partying, and this kid's 16 years old, and he's guzzling Southern Comfort whiskey, right?
And I finally bring him home. And I mean, he threw up in the back seat of my car, furious. I had to haul him in the house and downstairs, a little half bathroom off the kitchen. I bring him in there and I go to clean up my back seat of my car. I come back in. He's kneeling down with his head around the toilet like this. And I'm watching him just throwing up. And then he's like dry heaving. Nothing's coming up but his body. And then his legs start shaking, you know? I mean, he's just convulsing.
Yeah.
And this is the body just rejecting this poison.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the next morning, I had to open up the filling station we worked at. Hour later, he's supposed to be in. But 2 hours later, I call. His mom answers. And he said, no, Wayne's gone to work. I said, no, I'm at work. He's not here. I said, go check the bathroom off the kitchen. And I hear, Wayne, Demo, why are you, she's screaming at him. He's having a hangover, right? And she's just screaming at him because she lost her husband to alcoholism. And it's a German family, but about a year later, after I got saved, I happened to go by the station there. I'm talking to a mutual friend. He said he just got back from a detox center. And the doctors are saying if he has one more drink, it'll kill him. Somehow his body just goes, it's almost like an allergic reaction.
Yeah, that happens too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you one more funny story.
Yeah.
My wife, when she was in high school, it wasn't me. We didn't know each other till much later. But anyway, so she's on a double date. Her boyfriend and this other guy, and his date was named Andy Evers. Andy Evers was Miss Texas and then ended up becoming Miss America.
Oh, yeah.
So my wife's on a double date with Miss America and this, her boyfriend and then her. And so anyway, my wife ends up getting drunk. And she starts puking, and she pukes all over Miss America.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
That's something she'll never. And Miss America, of course, did not appreciate it.
No,
I don't think they spoke after that. No. And they were at rival high schools too. It's just a funny thing, but it's something I always remember. My wife had the honor of puking on Miss America.
Yeah. No, I know. I went on a date, just kind of a friendship date with a gal who was competing for Miss Oklahoma. And I get there and she's still taking another 45 minutes in front of the makeup mirror.
Oh, yeah.
It's a priority thing. They got to look for especially when you're holding the tiara, right? You got to look right. You're expected to. You don't want to take, they're lecturing you on that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. She kind of blew it.
She was a Miss America in waiting. She was still preparing, and I'm sure my wife helped inspire her to walk a different way.
Was this at Texas Women's University or before?
No,
that?
This was before that, and then Anyway,
all right. This was
in all of this. Most of this happened in El Paso, Texas.
Yep.
Oh, and then one more story. This buddy of mine. I want to be able to reach everybody with this, and this is a message that we need to know. Okay, I and Dave, I believe here, was delivered supernaturally, instantly from our addiction to, because I remember saying to myself 6 months earlier, I will never be able to stop smoking marijuana. I mean, I just love this stuff too much. And I'll confess, it's addictive. Whoever tells you it's not addictive, they're lying to you. It is addictive. Okay. But, and I thought I would never get off it, but instantly in one evening, boom, I was set free. Now, later on, I was involved with this church, from the Jesus Revolution, an offshoot of Calvary Chapel. And I was one of the deacons. And so guy gets saved and his wife and my wife and his wife become very good friends. They're Mexican. They're Hispanic people. And so anyway, I would get a call on a Saturday morning. Eddie, come see Richard. Richard's he's doing dope again. Can you come? And I go over there and it said, here, Eddie, take it away from me. And I go flush it down the toilet. Then a month, 6 weeks later, get a call. Richard's got another lid of weed, and I go. And finally, I got to the point where I said, hey, I am not flushing any more of this stuff down the toilet. Mm-hmm. When you're ready to quit, you'll quit. But right now, all you're doing is wasting a lot of money.
Yeah.
You need to quit wasting the money. So I said, we're playing games here. So I'm not going to throw this away anymore. In fact, I want you to have it and keep it. And when you're ready, you'll be ready. And sure enough, he was able to stop. Mm-hmm. And, I think what happened, they had a couple of kids. And once the kids came and he started realizing he had to have more responsibility.
Yeah. He
ended up quitting. And now probably 40 years later, he's been 40 years without.
Yeah. I want to say, so I don't think I would ever say that I was addicted to it. I loved it, but I wasn't addicted to it. I mean, it wasn't, I wanted it. It didn't own me.
I used to think that way about cigarettes until I tried to stop. That's when you can tell if you're addicted.
See, I tried smoking for a couple of weeks, didn't like it, I stopped.
Well, right. So you never got addicted.
Right.
But if you don't quit, in other words, you're addicted until you stop doing something. Whatever the habit is, until you stop it, you're addicted.
It's almost like if you're questioning whether it owns you, try going without it a few days.
Yeah.
Coffee. It's one of those things.
That's been my worst one. That's worse than marijuana.
Because your body builds up a certain new balance, and then you take it away. And like, what are you doing?
I quit once for 3 years, mm-hmm. and we were on a train from Spain back to Holland, mm-hmm. and we're driving through Switzerland, and my wife says, I'm going to go to the dining car. And so I said, okay, I'll meet you there. I get there, and in the dining car, they have these giant picture windows mm-hmm. by your little booth that you're sitting at the table and eating as you're zipping through France. Across the border into southern France. And you look out, and there's the French Alps in the distance, right? And just the scenery, everything's beautiful. And the French, I don't know if you've ever seen how they drink their coffee, but they do it out of bowls.
Oh.
They're gigantic. It looks like a cereal bowl. Wow. In fact, when you sit down, you have this, it's really fun. You have this big bowl, and then you have a little one next to it. And I thought, you put your coffee into the little cup, but no, that's for your yogurt and muesli. The little one. I know. Yeah. And then the big giant bowl is where they put their coffee, the cafe au lait, that's with milk mm-hmm. or with cream. And so anyway, and they fill it half of it with milk mm-hmm. and then the other half is coffee. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a little milk. It truly is, do you want coffee with your cream or your milk? Mm-hmm. But anyway, it's these giant bowls. And so I go in there, and here's my wife and this lady that she had met in the dining car, and they're sitting there talking with these giant bowls of coffee in front of them.
Wow.
And I sit down, and I said, I gotta have one of those. Yeah. And I broke my coffee fast or break, but it had been 3 years that I hadn't drunk coffee. Wow. And all of a sudden, and many, many times I've tried to quit. And one reason I need to quit is because it gives me migraines, the withdrawal.
Right.
If I drink coffee today, in 2 days, I will wake up with migraine.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but there are many, many forms of addiction and many things you can be addicted to.
Yeah.
I just want to say we do need to have compassion on these people. And there's some that I understand. I didn't realize this until recently, but there are some people that are so far gone medically, the doctors now are saying, don't try to take them off. Alcohol addiction, for example, that you'll kill the person.
Right. The shock to their system.
Right. And so I have a lot more compassion.
Yeah. And on that, I'll say there are people, in fact, last Saturday we were gone. You had things. I met with the candidate for Attorney General, John Eccles. And I got to ask a question. There was like 30 or 40 of us there. It was about a crackdown that he led in the legislature on opioid pain medications. And I said, what impressed me about John was the next year, the very first bill that he brought to the floor, because he's floor leader, was a correction where he went too far. And he stood there and apologized, turned to the camera, apologized. Those of you who need a pain management strategy that's going to involve this, I made a felon out of you. And it was horrible. And he corrected it. He said, what we've got to do, and this is the point I'm getting to, for people that, let's say, busted up your leg, you big old time, you need something to get you through the next week. It's those people that are given an opioid, hydrocodone or something like that. And if they don't wean off of it after like 7 days, he said, it's that quick, it forms an addiction. And I've had oral surgery, major stuff going on. And I'll have to tell my wife after about 5 days, you hang on to them. I like them too much. And again, I'm not one that's prone to physical addictions, but that's one of the things that is very addictive. It'll build a chemical. Plus, you just feel so good. And it's the same basic drug they make heroin out of.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny because I used to go to the dentist, and every time I went to the dentist or I went anywhere, they'd give me a prescription for like 25 hydrocodone.
Yeah.
It's called Narco now.
Mm-hmm.
Norco. Anyway, they changed the name, I guess. I don't know why. But anyway, so my closet would have I probably had 500 of these things because I never took them. They give me the prescription, then I just go. So I remember one day, you guys hear me give these kind of testimonies, I guess, of stuff that I've been through or done. And I know some of it is hard to believe, but it just comes as we're talking. But anyway, so I have diverticulosis.
Oh, that's a rough one.
Right. And so if you get diverticulitis, which is an inflammation of what it is, pockets in your intestinal lining. Mm-hmm. And if it's bad enough, it'll tear. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I don't know if we talked about this friend of ours that died in Amsterdam. But anyway, so one time I'm having my bout of this diverticulitis. And I mean, I can't even describe it. It was like somebody took a knife and kept repeatedly stabbing me back and forth in my stomach. A little knife going in. And I was about to scream. It was so bad. And the doctor told me, they wanted me to go to the hospital and make sure I wasn't in danger of the
you
poison.
get a rip in there, it'll kill you.
Yeah. And so what they, he wanted, I said, nah, I went through this before. I'll just write it out again. Okay. And so he gave me antibiotics and I was expecting so will this take effect by this afternoon? And he started laughing and said, no, it'll be tomorrow evening before this finally kicks in, the antibiotics to kill this. And so I said, oh, great. So I'm going home and I am laying there and I'm just crying out to God and literally crying out to God. All of a sudden, in my mind pops, try one of your Norcos.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's random. It doesn't work for me because I would try like a toothache or a headache. It doesn't work.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, I'm sorry.
Well, I am because God, there are times you need pain relief now.
Well, they have some other stuff that I find out. Yeah, which is not. It's not a narcotic, which is good, but it works. But anyway, so I'm there. I'm and trying Norco. Man, that's a random thought. Where did that come from? Right after I'm praying. I say, and I'm thinking, I'm arguing. It doesn't work. I've tried it. Doesn't, I've tried it before for like, I hurt a leg or something else, a back. Oh yeah, it was for my back. I had back. Didn't work. Tylenol worked better actually, and Aleve is actually, but anyway. So I said, okay, I'll try it. I took it 30 minutes later.
Right.
My pain was gone.
Right.
My stomach pain was gone.
It's one of the side effects of these opioids is it relaxes your digestive system, slows it down. So all that cramping and stuff going on, it'll relax it. It does the same thing for like kidney stones. Yeah. And here's my other point I have on it. I agree with you. Don't throw all of them away. The pharmaceutical people want you to get rid of all these old medicines. But a few years ago, woke up at 1 a.m, just cramping. And I've been here before. This is kidney stones. And I mean, I've talked to women who've delivered babies without any painkillers. They said the kidney stones are worse. Have you been through it? And it's actually the spasming of your ureter, it causes it. And I called Blue Cross. I had their insurance and they had 24-hour nurse line. So I call her up, I said, here, it's like, she sounds like kidney stones. I said, well, I'm going to tell you now. I didn't ask. I'm letting you know I had an extra hydrocodone I took just before I called you. And she said, you probably just saved yourself a night at the emergency room. Because that's usually their go-to on that is first they'll give you painkillers to shut down that cramping. And hopefully then things will pass on their own. Yeah. So,
but no, it's funny how, things work out, but man, it's funny how we got from,
we're talking about alcoholism.
And we're on kidney stones.
Addictions, yeah. But there's a reason to hang on to them. Just keep it in a safe place. And don't go advertising to the druggie next door.
Right. No, exactly.
Because they'll bust you. In fact, do you ever watch on Netflix? There was a series.
I finally sold them all down on 11th Street. No.
If you watch on Netflix, there's a series Ashton Kutcher did called The Ranch.
I never watched.
Oh my goodness, you have to watch it because they do 10 episode seasons, so it's pretty short. But I think it was like season 6 or 7. One of the secondary characters, same basic thing. Took something for a abscess tooth, got hooked on it, needed more. Found a dealer, and then they didn't have it, but they had heroin. Now she's on heroin. And I mean, near death. And they show the subtle progression. You think it can't happen to you? My God, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just thankful to God that I never, like I say, when I go to the dentist, that's where they used to prescribe the Norco or the hydrocodone.
Yeah.
And I would take it just in case it ever got to that bad, but I would just do Tylenol and Aleve or ibuprofen. Took care of my tooth pain. Yeah. And like I said, and then with my migraines, I tried a Norco and never worked. So I said, I'm not doing this again. But they do have, there are lots of if you're a migraine sufferer or a migraine sufferer, there's a multitude of migraine pills now that work great. And I use, what is it? Man, I can't think of the name of it because there's some of the close names. Sumatriptan is the one. It's also a trade name is Maxalt. But it's Sudatrip. Now that one's expensive. That one is a tier 3 drug on your list of copays or whatever. And the Sumatriptan. I was trying to think of the other Imitrex, I think is the name of it. Imitrex is the trade name of that. That one's free. It'll come under your health insurance with no deductible.
So it's a generic.
Yeah, same with both of them. Both of them generic sumatriptan and rizatriptan. Suma and Riza. Riza is the max out. That's the expensive, and the let's say Suma and some other triptan. They're triptans is what they are. But anyway, just some tips for you if you ever need. If you're a migraine sufferer, that's what you want to look for. If the sumatriptan doesn't work, then you go to the rizatriptan, which is the more expensive one. But now they've got several other ones out there. I've never tried any of because the Suma and I'm so maybe it's cheap, but I'll get one. If I get a migraine, I break them in half, and I only do a half of one.
Sure.
And usually the half of one works. Occasionally it doesn't. Then I have to go to the full
Absolutely.
pill. Anyway, hey, that's Dr. Huff here with his assistant.
Yes, your addiction helpline podcast.
Yeah, we're going to help you get addicted. Anyway, enough of that. Sorry, we may have gone longer than we needed to, but hey, somebody may need that. So
that's
I hope
right.
so. Hey, in some of the news here today, I guess we'll start off with our friend Elon. Let's start off with Elon.
Okay.
Mr. Musk is no longer the head of Doge.
Right.
He has signed off. He has gone back to making money.
His other 5 corporations, right?
Which he's really good at. And, it's funny because as soon as he did that, his different stocks have just started.
Good. Yeah, it should.
Going up. Yeah. So Tesla being one of them, that's really, Tesla's the only one that you're able to buy a stock in. The others are privately held still.
Right.
But when the others come online, as they expect them to here soon, SpaceX and some of the others, when that happens, you'll probably be able to by buying Tesla, because Tesla provides a lot of the hardware for SpaceX and all of his other deals.
Sure.
So as those rise, Tesla will rise as well. And the stock's already grown over $100 a share in the last 3 months or so, I guess.
Cool.
So that's just a little tip for you. If you want to, you can. There are certain brokers that will let you in for a minimum $500, but then you can buy shares in some of these ETF, electronically traded funds that will incorporate all of Elon's inventions, Tesla, SpaceX, and those. So when they come online, you don't have to be what's called a savvy investor. Savvy investor is something to qualify. You have to, I believe, have $100,000, maybe $1 million. Right. I don't know, and know what you're doing and so forth. I don't know why. To me, honestly, that's a roadblock to people.
It is.
Like the average person, because they put the bar so high, the average person doesn't have qualified to even buy the shares.
But you notice they've kind of opened up a niche market for the mutual fund style of deal where you buy a slice of a share kind of thing.
Right. But that's actually different. So if you go into an ETF, like ETFs, you can't buy slices of ETFs. Okay. So electronically traded funds is what that is. And so once the stock actually goes, and if it, like not every stock allows you to buy slices.
Yeah, that was just ones. One thing. The whole mutual fund concept that's been around for decades, where you have this fund, it'll invest in things like Tesla and that. Right. And then people invest in the fund that owns the stocks. Right.
But you can buy slices as well of expensive, like Tesla, NVIDIA,
Berkshire,
$5. Now it's only going to get you 1/100th of a share or something. But those shares usually grow. A Berkshire, I think it grows like at $200 a day or something, because there's each share is like what, $15,000 or $20,000.
I listened to Ted Koppel sitting at a Dairy Queen with Warren Buffett, because Berkshire bought Dairy Queen, right? And he says, "Look, I've got Berkshire. Every stock, now this is 25, 30 years ago." He says stocks right now are trading at $2,200. This was probably 30 years ago. It's Ted Koppel talking to him. And it's only gone up since. And he says, "Why don't you split the stocks?" He says, "I just don't want to attract that kind of investor." In other words, the peons.
You white trash.
Yeah. Peons.
Yeah. You what? $100,000? Get away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, really. Yeah. No, I agree. It's that stuff. So no, slices are a good way. There's here's a couple of tips too. Charles Schwab.
Mm-hmm.
Charles Schwab is doing it. There are several. SoFi. SoFi is really come along. You need to look into SoFi. But anyway, but let's say you want to just go directly stock. And so you go open an account with Charles Schwab, and then you can buy the slices. Mm-hmm. And $5 is all you have to have. And you keep buying $5. If you do $5 a week, $5 a month, whatever, $10. And eventually you'll get in the habit. And as the stock grows, dividends are paid, capital gains are paid. That's how it grows. And
now that's a tool to help get you started.
Right.
So that but if you kept doing that when you're worth, say, 3 or 4 million, the fees doing it that way, I'm sure would be higher, wouldn't they? Buying little slices.
No, actually, most of these Schwab somehow has gotten rid of the fees. So $5, you get $5 worth of the share. Now the company itself may have a fee, but Schwab won't have the fee.
They're getting money somehow. They wouldn't be doing this.
Oh no! Well, yeah, no, I know how they do it. They make their money by what they'll do. Let's say you buy the shares, and then in their portfolio, it gets paid.
Yeah. Okay.
But they get paid then from the companies that make up.
See, my concern with the stockbroker is they're always pitching something, and I'm like, who are they working for? Me or somebody who's saying, unload these?
Yeah. But no, it's been a real blessing. The average person can now literally, and then there's penny stocks. And if you really look into it and know what you're doing, you're going to hate me for this, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Guess
what I just noticed?
What? Oh, you weren't recording. Yeah, that's fine. As long as it works, right. We're going to be okay.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, anyway, if you wanted to know how to get in and get in slowly as you learn, you've got $10.
Okay.
$20. Buy a slice of Tesla, Google, Apple. If you're an Apple.
Let me ask you this. A couple of years ago, GameStop made all the news because a bunch of people on, I think it was called the Robinhood app.
Yeah, they call it meme stocks.
The hedge funds were going to make a killing short selling.
Right, which means they're waiting for it to go down.
But all of these kids who grew up on GameStop and wanted to see it come back, they decided it was undervalued. And they screwed over the hedge funds.
Oh, they did, yeah.
To millions of dollars.
Drove it back up to over, I think, $200.
So the question is using a strategy that, say, is like an app like Robinhood, it's got to be pretty popular for that.
Yeah, but see, no, Robinhood doesn't invest for you. You still have to make the investment. So all Robinhood is like going to a broker, but instead of going to a broker, instead of like a broker may advise you. Like if you come to me about insurance, then I will tell you insurance. You go to Mike Mazie, he will help advise you on where to invest your money. Robinhood, SoFi, even Schwab. Now some of them like Schwab will have actual brokers there. If you want the help, they will help you.
Yeah.
But as far as Robinhood is the ones who started the $5 the slices where you can buy pieces, but they don't help you decide what stock to buy. That's your own deal.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of those ways, kind of a self-serve.
Yeah.
You know, back when you and I were young, there was the full service island and self-service. Gas was 10 cents higher in full service.
Right. Yeah. And it used to be higher for stocks because you're paying a broker or whatever. Now when you get to a certain amounts of money and certain people, take Mike Macy, okay?
Yeah.
I don't know this personally, but just from people I've spoken to, the man knows what he's doing.
He sure showed his stuff here 2 months ago.
Right. Well, but these are investment-wise. People that I know have told me that he has made them a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's got a graduate degree in financial planning. Right. I mean, it's just, he is a sharp guy in that, no doubt.
Right. So I
disagree on some policies with him, but I think he's a sharp guy. I think if you want competence, you'll get it with him. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's in business, financial, or elected office, I think he's the competent guy.
Oh yeah, and I'm hoping he is our next governor. So
all right,
but okay. So anyway, that's that. Hey,
so Elon said goodbye, and he's in his stock prices of his several companies are going up. That's the wrap on.
Right now, here's a little tip too, a little insight. Everybody is anxiously awaiting. Mm-hmm. For Elon to develop a new, and I'm still not totally clear on it, whether it's a chip, a computer system, what it is, but apparently this is supposed to be the biggest thing since the wheel. It's supposed to literally revolutionize everything. It's a world changer. And they've been working on it in secret for years. And in June, people have said is when this is coming out. It's called Project Zero, I think. Project Zero, Project X. I can't remember the name exactly, but it is supposed to be this new revolutionary thing that changes everything, game changer. And you have to really dig deep and then still not understand what exactly is going on. But the people who know, and let me just say this, it's not just one source. Every stock analyst and advisor, they're all talking about this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is unless it's a time machine or something.
Well, and I do know this may be something completely different. I remember when X.com was one of the first online banks. I had an X.com credit card or debit card. And he bought back that domain from somebody. He got away from him and he's got it back. And then he changed Twitter over to X.com. So right now there's Apple Pay, there's Google Pay, there will be X. It's integrated in your, I'd say, Twitter account, and that will be your banking. He literally wants to do that. At least that's what the analysts are envisioning.
Right.
So, because, there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah.
A lot of power.
I mean, you wonder, how does, you hear about separating the men from the boys, but separating Elon from everybody else is something totally, how do you get to the point where you're that smart about everything? It's almost everything that, let's not say everything, but everything that means something, this guy's got his hand in. Finance, right? With, I don't know if you know, but he's a part of, what is the money transfer company? PayPal. Yeah. He was one of the initial founders of PayPal.
Yeah, he and Peter Thiel.
Right. And then you've got Twitter that he bought. Well, he bought Twitter, but SpaceX.
Right. Well, PayPal spun off Venmo, which is really big now.
Right. And then actually, I prefer Cash App. That's my favorite. And it's growing. It's really
simple.
growing. Yeah.
It's simple. Yeah.
Oh, we never really talked about that, did we? That the founder of Cash App was murdered on the streets of San Francisco.
Oh.
Yeah, it happened last year. Yeah. So that maybe we'll get into it again sometime. But anyway, that Elon can have his hands and his mind into so many different things is just unbelievable. I mean, you think, but God creates people like this.
Right.
Know? They're usually weird, but they're brilliant.
Here's the thing. I remember a time when Amazon only sold books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now they are like the biggest retailer, right? And do they have competition? Walmart's trying to compete with them. Now, Walmart does have Arvis Bank, right? Used to be here in Tulsa, it was State Bank. Yep. And they've turned our little Tulsa area bank into this big global thing.
Right. It's owned by the Walmart kids.
Yeah. But when you have your in-house banking and all your merchandising and everything, it's going to take somebody with some real leverage and power to really give Amazon the competition that I think a consumer needs. You got to have healthy competition. It keeps prices competitive.
Walmart's the only ones that really can do it. I don't know of anybody else out there. What's the Chinese company?
AliExpress, Alibaba. Yeah, they have AliExpress is their real slick online store. Now Temu, which is kind of international, they're competing with them. I think they're part Korean investment, part China.
Temu it just seems like sleaze. I mean, I don't have a lot of. I'll tell you why. I bought some shoes.
I remember the story. Yeah.
I remember these tennis shoes, and they had the Jaguar. Was it Jaguar or something?
Puma.
A Puma, yeah.
It looks sort of like a Puma.
Yeah, on the picture, it looked sort of like Puma. Well, when you're looking at it, these Puma shoes, and then they come in the mail, and it's like, what is this? It's some weird little thing.
Right.
And the shoes are just...
They were bad.
Not at all. Yeah.
And that's the thing.
But then you showed me those T-shirts, those undershirts.
Yeah, this shirt.
Yeah.
$6.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, nice, and so... It's and so it's almost, to me, the problem with Temu is it's like gambling. I'm putting my money, am I going to get what I wanted to get or not? Now you've been able to get, this is not real nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, but it's a crapshoot, as they call it. With
you got to be particularly careful, but if you're careful, I bought what looked like a twill plaid shirt. Looks good. A picture. I get it. It's cheap polyester. It's something you'd see in a nursing home. And it was crap. Because I didn't go look at the specs and see it's 100% polyester. It's not a cotton twill, and so that happens. But what they did is they went after the people who sell on AliExpress and said, hey, we'll take you here as long as your price is at least as low or lower than people get on AliExpress. Temu. And they've been very successful. Their marketing is really slick, online marketing.
Oh, yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's a buyer beware. But, I had a particular Bluetooth that I really like for listening to podcasts at home. It's stereo, left and right. And one of them, the battery started going bad after 4 or 5 years. I go looking for it on Amazon. I can get it, one of the two, for $18. But I went on AliExpress and it was $5.
Oh.
And so, but minimum order was $10, and it was just under $5. I ended up buying 3 for the same price I could get 1 on Amazon.
Wow. And then you could sell the other 2.
Well, I use them so much, I figure eventually batteries, just like your cell phone battery, a couple of years and you need a new one, right? So that's what happens when you're recharging things. But
that's funny.
Anyway, so Elon's got a lot going on. Yesterday, he did a joint press conference, Oval Office. Trump was able to dispel all the myths that he got fired or anything like that. Evidently, the staff of Doge is still there.
Yeah.
So
Doge is not going away. Elon is going away. And I believe the reason Elon had to leave was because it was hurting Tesla and his SpaceX, hurting all of the other business. And it's funny because since he left Tesla, the stock has jumped probably $100 a share at least. And so it's just, it's so funny how politics affects almost everything today.
Right. And what was going on there was people sabotaging, destroying cars at dealerships because of Elon's politics regarding budget matters.
Yeah, and what's so stupid, this is what I don't understand, okay? People are putting their social views and politics ahead of their pocketbook.
Yeah.
And what's bad about it is I don't care what you do with your own money, your own pocketbook, what you want to invest in, as we've been talking, or what you not want to invest in. But when you start affecting other people who may need this, right, that's when I get upset. So these progressives seem to think that they can determine the course of the world for everybody, rather than it's totally against the Republican form of democracy that this country was founded upon. They have a European French Revolution mindset, and which destroyed France, basically, set them back hundreds of years, I believe. They've still not recovered because deep down they still have this, what's her name, Marie Antoinette complex that they just don't like what's going on. Actually, I guess Marie Antoinette is who they got rid of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was what Richelieu, was it Richelieu that was behind the French Revolution? Yeah,
and then he ends up in the guillotine.
Right, yeah, they kill, that's how, let that be a cautionary tale to you that generally the people who start a revolution of this sort end up dying. What's the old saying? Live by the sword, die by the sword. And there's no greater example than that type of rebellion and rebellious spirit. And whereas America was founded in a whole different manner, it was kind of, it started out peacefully, and they didn't start the revolution. It was the British that tried to suppress the people.
Yeah, they just added more and more suppression.
Right, more and more suppression to try to fight against the democracy and the republicanism that the people, the spirit of the people here in America, in the colonies, whereas the French, they just, they can't get it. Hey, but here's what I don't understand, Dave. Do people not look at history? Do they not stop and think this stuff through? In other words, been there, done that, and it didn't work?
Eddie, you and I
100 times.
You and I were educated during a time and an era where you actually had education rather than indoctrination.
Yeah, but it's those people who got educated alongside us that have fostered all of this.
Right, but they have used it for their own corrupt ends.
Right.
And so now the universities are indoctrination centers because they want power and control and to change our culture into their ideals.
Yeah, I think, though, we're starting to see a reverse revolution happening.
Yes, young people are become more conservative.
Right, which is hallelujah. It's and not only that, but they're starting to come to Jesus. more of these rallies and things that are happening all over the place. But anyway, here, Elon Musk ended his tenure with the Trump administration Wednesday, thanking the president and vowing that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, will continue without him, as you said. Excuse me, the water. The controversial agency, which was started by President Trump and Musk, claims to have saved $175 billion through its cost-sharing efforts. Now, see, here's what gets me. It's $175 billion. Elon said that he expected it to say $3 trillion.
Yeah.
Okay. But the saddest part about it is that even the Republicans in Congress are fighting it.
Yeah.
He put forth several changes that the Republicans don't want. And I'll tell you why. Because they're getting paid.
Yep.
It's just bottom line, follow the money, and the root of all evil. And these Republican congressmen and senators are afraid of losing money. And the people, and a lot of times losing money that give them the power. And so we don't have a clean Congress any longer.
I think much of the money that was funneled through USAID got funneled right back into campaign contributions.
Oh, yeah.
It's just called laundering. Wasn't USAID was paying out a bunch of money to an organization that Stacey Abrams, the leftist candidate for governor in Georgia.
Like $100 million.
Yeah. I don't understand why, the numbers aren't meeting the targets that Elon early on said that they were.
I'll tell you why. It's because he's being fought tooth and nail by the courts and by Congress.
Yeah.
In fact, they rejected there was one resolution they came up with, or one bill they came up with, where they wanted to put certain stops to everything, and the Republicans voted against it.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, it's showing that we cannot put our trust in party.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do it.
No.
And we've got. I'll tell you honestly, the one person, I have a good friend in Washington, in the Senate. You all know who he is, and I like him as a person, his family, et cetera, et cetera. But to be honest with you, I'm at the point I really don't even trust his judgment in certain things. Mm-hmm. The only one that I really trust these days is Josh Brecheen.
Yeah.
Josh Brecheen. And I don't know how much of a future he has, because kicking against the pricks, as the Bible talked about, and you can take that in more ways than one, too, by the way. But anyway, it doesn't seem to pay. It doesn't seem. They will find enough money somewhere and somebody out there to do their bidding to take him out.
Yeah.
And I hope not. But I do hope that you will support Josh in every way we can, because like I said, we need some good, clean legislators. What's the guy from Missouri? Josh Hawley. Mm-hmm. Josh Hawley's another one, Senator Hawley. That guy, I love watching him on YouTube. He just cuts these people to shreds. So there are some there, okay? It's not everybody, but man, it's tough.
Well, I don't think any of them you should be an all-in support everything. I mean, I disagreed with Trump on bump stocks and on red flag laws, because early on, he changed. He got some good advice. He's like, think this through, Donald,
mm-hmm.
And he corrected himself. But Josh Hawley, there's some things where he's really giving concessions to organized labor that really bother me.
Yeah, see, I honestly don't have a problem with organized labor if organized labor is doing what it originally was intended to do.
Yeah.
And that is to prevent these robber barons. Okay?
I agree. It is just one thing, and that's the right of an individual worker to choose whether or not to join a collective bargaining without his job being on the line.
Right. But see, and honestly, I think that's the only thing we need to ensure, that they have that right to, right to work laws.
Yeah.
That we have that. Now, labor unions should, and here's the deal. If in a right to work state and under right to work laws, if they're starting to work against the laborers, then I think the unions will grow. It's the American way. It just is. If we don't like something enough, it'll grow.
Yeah.
And if not, it'll die.
But we have some things that are worse than that. Like in Oklahoma, you can't practice law unless you join this private organization that has a monopoly. It's called the Oklahoma Bar. We should, at the minimum, have alternative bar associations, not just one monopoly.
Like nationally, you have the American Bar Association, the National Bar Association.
No, I just think within the state of Oklahoma.
Right. Oh, no.
That's where the regulation is.
Right.
It's like you have to join one. Just like teachers can join the NEA or the I forget, American Federation. I forget. There's another.
AFT, American Federation of Teachers.
Yeah. So join one.
Right.
Fine. But don't give anybody monopoly. In fact, upcoming here in a week or two, we'll have a corporation commissioner candidate in. And we have to discuss that, because that whole concept of the government sets up a monopoly and then somewhat regulates them. The problem we have with our bar association, there is no regulating of it by the government. That's a problem. It controls government.
Which bleeds over into sports, if we may.
Okay.
You have what? The one NCAA? See, when I was a kid, the NIT was the big one as far as basketball.
Right.
The NIT
tournament.
And then the NCAA comes along, forms, and then they take away from the NIT now is like some sub.
Yeah, it is.
Category. It's for the losers. It's a losers
the ones
bracket.
who didn't get their invite to the big dance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's a monopoly. That should be broken up.
I agree.
You should not have an NCAA.
Yeah.
You should have, you can have the NCAA, you can have the American Collegiate Athletic Association.
So here's some news happening on that. Right now, the SEC, the Southeast Conference, is trying to become the veto arbiter over the new format for college postseason football. And they want special consideration given to
their teams.
The elite conferences should have more automatic entries. And I could see the other conference just saying flat out, go to hell. We could end up back where we were 100 years ago, where all there was bowl games. And like the Rose Bowl was, okay, you fight for your conference championship, Big Ten winner, Pac. And then how about the Pac-10 invite the Big Ten out to Pasadena? And you might end up going back to where we were 100 years ago, where that's all there was bowl games. If they can't get along, and I think the SEC might be too big for the britches.
Oh, yeah. I think they already are.
Yeah.
And I don't think OU and Texas helped.
Yeah.
It's too bad. The attitude. See, that's the problem. You talk about, what is it, the Big Five? You actually have five. Oh, no, it's only four now because the Pac is gone.
Yeah.
So you have four, but even within that, you've got this kind of elite attitude. Basically, the SEC and the Big Ten would like for there only to be two.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Forget you guys. The ACC, Big 12, and so and so you have to have some kind of regulation. But here's the other deal that this bleeds into is television.
Yes.
See, ABC, has a stake in the SEC.
Because they own ESPN. It's all Disney companies, right?
Right. Yeah,
Right.
ABC is the major company.
The
over
broadcast.
broadcast.
Right. The
and
cable
they're the ones.
ESPN.
They're the ones that. But between ABC and ESPN, right? And for some reason, Fox put a little dent into it because they had these exclusive rights to the Big 12, the Big 12, and then the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that kind of put a damper in it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that OU and Texas jumped, and then the Pac-10 jumped to the Big 10, and then
largely, yeah.
Yeah, well, only three teams that ended up.
4 went to Big 10, 4 went to Big 12, and then
sorry, I forgot to
and then what was it? Two of them went to the ACC, and then there's 2 orphans there that they get to keep all the money left over if they stay there for, I think, 1 more year.
Mm-hmm.
Then they got all this cash, a bunch of money. So I can understand them staying there. But
they buy recruits.
Yeah, it got pillaged. It's dead.
Yeah, but anyway, so getting back to the original thought, to me, the NCAA is too big. It's a monopoly, basically, and because they're the ones who determine that guys, transsexual men can participate in women's sports.
Right.
They're the ones who determine that you can go here, but you can't go there, and it's not even handed even. They are partial to certain schools, and the SEC is one of those that gets away with stuff other conferences can't.
Yeah, it's a joke. What they've really exposed is that higher ed is a corrupt business, period. Now, trade schools, I still have a lot of respect for, but these liberal arts colleges, by and large, the A&Ms and stuff, they don't even know that you can't dope on testosterone for 10 years and claim to be a woman and say, well, even if I take something that suppresses it now, then I should be. No, you've got a body that you've been building for 10 years on a natural source of testosterone. You ain't a woman. You ain't going to be a woman.
It's a good thing I've only been on it for 5 years. So if my voice starts squeaking, you'll know why.
Yeah. But I'm
I'm going the other way. I'm going to it'd be estrogen. No, I'm sorry, I'm not taking estrogen.
No, but it's like they're where we go to get educated. No, I'm sorry. It ain't gonna happen. I'll go learn a trade and make a career out of that. But you guys have lost your moral authority in the sciences.
Yeah.
In the schools, largely got in Harvard schools.
Mainly the social sciences more than anything else. That's where they've really gone nuts. I mean, nuts.
But they don't understand that the sports divisions of men and women's is based on biology. And they don't understand biology. They think how feminine you feel on a given day trumps biology.
Yeah.
It's asinine. And
it is. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I have to say, the NCAA, as soon as Trump took over, they threw in the towel immediately. And they adopted Trump's policy.
Well, I think they're afraid that he will break them up.
Exactly.
Yeah, if he breaks them up, all that money is gone.
Yeah, because you can make a strong antitrust argument that it is a monopoly.
Yeah, and honestly, somebody should make an antitrust argument against the NFL.
Yes. Well, I think all
NBA, NFL, PGA.
The football's a little more immune because there are other minor league organizations. Yeah,
but that's not another competing entity on the same level.
I agree.
That's what makes me mad with the PGA and Live. Okay. I enjoy watching Live Golf.
Yes, I do.
In fact, everybody seems to like it. Yes. I mean, the fans really like Live Golf.
That's right.
But your purists and plus the money people, they want to keep the PGA as the PGA. To me, it's just a new form of snobbery, a new form of prejudice and bigotry.
Yeah.
That tries to enslave groups and people.
Yep.
And control them. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I love the guys who left PGA to play and Live, but because they were champions, they still get to play in the PGA too. They hate that. I'm sure they just hate that. Scotty Scheffler.
Now, the one thing the PGA didn't have, they didn't own the Masters. Masters decides on their own who they're going to have. So Live Golf guys got to go to the Masters, and then the U.S. Open. This is the U.S. Golf Association. It's not PGA. So you've got that.
Right, but there's some others that they have a deal like if you've won any of the majors, then you get to play in the PGA.
Yeah.
Whether you're in Live or not.
Yep.
So, I'm rooting for the Live because it's fun, and I'll tell you who I think is really behind a lot of the keeps the PGA pure. I think it's probably NBC and CBS because they have the games.
Yes.
And they want to control that. And they don't want this turning into like the football situation where the Big 12, the Pac-10, all of these different groups or in other networks are able, because Fox, I think, carries a lot of the Live.
CW does.
And CW, you're right. Yeah. CW carries some too. So
it was a huge moneymaker for CW.
Yeah.
The highest ratings any of their shows. Yeah.
I think the CW, it's either CW or what's the channel 41, whatever that is.
My TV is 41. It's owned here locally by Fox 23.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 41.
Okay, because I think they're carrying WNBA games where a lot of the others aren't. Of course, nobody wants to right now with Caitlin Clark, which we should get into a little later. No, not right now. Okay. But save that when we get to the other sports. But anyway, man, there's a lot of stuff. Trump calls out Putin, accuses China of not honoring trade deal during his 19th week in office. Putin is not cooperating. Here, they're accusing Putin. And Trump is ticked. Of course, he should be ticked, but he's mad because Putin apparently is not playing ball with peace talks.
Right.
Okay. But it was funny because it may be one of these news entities, one of these reporters that is one of the big boys. When Trump was talking about Putin, and he was mad at Vladimir and he was slamming Russia. And then this reporter says, well, do you have anything to say about the 150 drone attacks on Russia here yesterday? And Trump says, what? I hadn't even heard it. And then he says, well, no wonder Putin's mad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is still a conspiracy among the EU, particularly led by France and England, Germany, to not give in, to fight tooth and nail, to destroy Vladimir Putin. And until we understand that, I'm not saying Putin's the saint. I'm not saying Putin is the good guy, but I think here's the problem. And face it, this is the problem, okay? If Putin loses this, it won't stop. It will not stop. They literally hate Vladimir Putin and probably Russia in general. And if he were to give in now, to give an inch, as they say, they won't stop. And he knows this and he's afraid of this. Now, I know all of these people with their Ukraine flags and who support Ukraine and all. I'm not against Ukraine. Okay. I'm not. To me, Ukraine, Germany, France, England, you name it, Belgium, Holland, they're pretty much all the same. Okay. They're Europeans. They have a different culture. They're entitled to their culture and so forth. But the problem is they have gotten under Obama, and then, of course, again, even worse under Biden, they've gotten a little big in the britches. It's funny, but when Angela Merkel took over Germany, that's when it started. They tried to make her the leader of the free world. She basically replaced Obama. American president was no longer, and Obama just gave it to her. He let Angela be the face. She's on magazine covers and stuff, and they made such a big deal out of Angela Merkel. And I love that one photo. There's this precious photo of one of the NATO or EU conferences, where Trump is sitting at a table. And he's like this, and he's looking up, and you got Merkel leaning over there.
Yeah, I know.
It's
the best shot.
It is. The Japanese prime minister is here, and all these guys around, and Trump's just ignoring her. Go away, fly. It's just
his body posture is that I ain't threatened by you. Very much.
Yeah, I could care.
I have to say, some of these policies really were pushed. It started with Clinton. If you listen to Jeff Sachs at Columbia, who was advisor to these former Soviet bloc countries, he told Tucker Carlson, he says, look, we made promises not to expand NATO to the East European former Soviet bloc countries. And we lied, and we lied, and we lied, and we lied. And so Jeff Sachs says, if you're Putin, it's playing right into your paranoia. I think, especially when you listen to the argument that J.D. Vance told them at the NATO, Germany's NATO conference, he says, you guys, how strong is your democracy if you have to pull these kind of maneuvers to cancel elections, cancel free speech and all that? I'm saying, if Trump takes us out of NATO, all of a sudden, these countries are scrambling to come up with the defense structure to protect themselves. Mm-hmm. They are benefiting from us paying for their defense.
That's right.
If we pull out of that, Putin no longer has a justification for his paranoia. And the Russian people have got to feel like, oh, thank God, we aren't facing down
the U.S., right?
Because, listen, you grew up over there. You remember that threat of the Warsaw Pact, that their land troops could overrun you, right? And military kind of perpetuated that paranoia.
Well, see, Germans, it's funny. They have they're so double-minded. Okay, this is just how it is. I used to get in. You know how I have my arguments on Facebook? Mm-hmm. Well, I had it with this Christian magazine over there called Pax, Peace, Pax, P-A-X. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was P-A-C-H, but Pax. Anyway, and it was about, they were these peaceniks.
Yep. They were probably funded by the Soviets.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. Okay. Because it's a true thing. They have this movement. For example, we were seen as the bad guys for intervening in Iraq.
Okay.
They hated us for it. That's what actually started it, when Bush, and they started bashing Bush and the Republicans. And so overseas, the Republican Party and Republican presidents and leaders are seen as the bad guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Democrat, they're just wonderful. Oh, Biden and Kamala and Clinton, they're in Buttigieg, right. And so, so you've got that on one hand. At the same time, within, deep down, they're still ticked off that they're not the leaders of the world.
Yep.
they still believe in the Fourth Reich.
Yeah.
Okay, the Fourth Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Reich means kingdom. Okay, so the Third Reich was the Third Kingdom where Germany ruled,
Mm-hmm.
and they still think that they're supposed to rule, and for America to be the leader of the free world just irked them.
Sure.
And that's why they loved Biden.
Yeah.
I like to call him,
right,
because they abdicated that leadership role
yes,
and allowed them. Of course, then they had the conflict between Germany and France of who not
right.
Mitterrand, what's his name?
Macron.
Macron, yeah. Manuel. And then you had the German prime minister. So you've got all these little underlying tensions going on over there that we don't ever think of. We just know Germans don't like us, French don't like us, or this or that, or they don't like Republicans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the same group of people that came out of the 60s revolutionary movement. See, the riots in Germany paralleled those that we had in Chicago and Berkeley and all those in 68.
Right.
68. Theirs were bigger than ours even.
Yeah, but there are people that say those were backed by Soviet money and infiltration.
Oh, that's
the whole peacenik movement.
Yeah, that's possible. And then, of course, East Germany. This is a question I was asked. Nobody's been able to answer it yet. What happened to all the communists when the wall came down? Were they raptured?
Mm-hmm.
They went somewhere.
Sure.
Like all of a sudden, it's like, oh yeah, Russia's good, Germany's good, East Germany. See, East Germany, when the wall came down, all the East Germans came over to the West and started influencing there. Wow. So there's so much of a dynamic going on over in Europe right now. It's just
I talked to one of them. His daughter lives here. She's actually, an attorney by training, education, University of Moscow. Father was a professor there. Yeltsin comes in.
Not German. We're talking Russian now.
Russia.
These are Russians. Okay.
Right. But you said what happened with the Soviet, No,
I know. I just want people to understand.
So I'm talking to you. He and I are at a birthday party. I pulled out my Google Translator thing where I could talk and it would type it out in Russian for him, and back and forth. Because he had some English. I have absolutely no Russian. But he just talked about how pathetic of a leader Yeltsin was. He no longer was a professor, had to become a police officer, right? Buying his time. And then, now he's retired, but he just talked about how such a much better leader Putin is. The Russian culture wants a strong man.
Yeah.
They revere masculinity. It's the decadent West has emasculated itself largely.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Africa is the same.
Okay.
Probably South America is the same.
Right.
Machoism.
Right. Were men, and I think that's part of what's decaying the West. I think the Western culture is decadent.
Emasculated.
It's emasculated. I'm just saying emasculation is one of those symptoms you're seeing there.
No, I agree totally. Same in Africa. So Africa, what was it that Bush wanted to do? He wanted to, what was his big push that he wanted to do? With the Middle East, the Bush Doctrine, he wanted to essentially tame all of that. And
he wanted, women educated, women voting and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can't remember. But anyway, yeah.
That tribal culture is not going to change.
No. Well, no, it's not going to change from without. And with that, through social evolution.
Yeah, but he was nation building.
Oh yeah, there you go, nation building. So if we had backed up, I believe you would, and I think you still will eventually, if America will stay out of it, see a new revolution in Iran
Mm-hmm.
and in those countries, because the people eventually, as they become educated, Iran is a very educated country.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the Chinese of the Middle East, really, because those people are smart.
Yeah.
And the universities and everything, they're top notch. They're just ruled by ruthless pigs, I call them.
Right.
But anyway, so eventually, I believe, but it's almost biblical how, remember in Persia, Cyrus and Darius, and they had the Jews and Babylonians, which is Iran. Under that, then what eventually happened, you had kings that were influenced by the Jews in certain ways. Sure. And they actually helped deliver the Jews.
Cyrus. Yeah.
And so this nation building, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now, I understand what Trump is saying with Iran. You cannot continue building a nuclear weapon and missiles to deliver them. Mm-hmm. You know, we will have to blow you off the face of the earth. I'm sorry. And there's precedent. We did it in Japan, basically, you know. So, but the Europe, for some reason, I think Europe hates America more than they do any other country, including Russia. Okay. And it's pride. It's just pride. They do not believe that this nation of mongrels
I think it's worse.
Should have its place in the world as a leader of the world.
I think it's worse the way we're despised by much of Europe, Western Europe, worse than a lot of other countries around the world, because the Europeans feel like they're entitled to our wealth, to our free military protection, that they get to put tariffs on our goods, but we can't put tariffs on theirs.
Let's move to that topic, the tariffs. We've done with this other. I don't understand it. I do not understand. I mean, listen, I'm not an economist. I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn last night. Okay. But I don't understand why people can't get into their minds the fact that if we're only putting the same tariff on as the other country is putting on us, how that is supposed to stifle things when all it really does is level the field. And we say, if you want to get rid of yours, we'll get rid of ours. We just want a level playing field.
Yep.
If you want to send your stuff to America, send it on. You know, as long as you allow us to send our stuff to you. And that people can't get that in their heads. I don't understand. And I've got some people on Facebook coming at me. One's an electrical contractor, and he's all ticked off because his cost of goods is now that much higher. Excuse me, I guess even with tariffs, his cost buying from American is higher than it is from Europe or Asia with the tariffs, you know. And no, I'm sorry, I've got this totally backwards. Right, there are no tariffs. That's why the prices are higher now that Trump has put the 30% tariff on stuff. His electrical materials and things that he has to use are 30% more expensive, and it's hurting his business.
You're right.
And whereas, you know, if we try to send something to Europe, they're going to put the 30% on us, you know. So I don't understand why people can't understand that if we rally around this, that's really what it takes. Is just nerve and to sit the art of the deal to say, okay, guys, what's going to happen, one of two things. Either you're going to drop your tariffs we're going to have truly free trade both ways, or America is going to have to tighten their belts, and we're going to have to start making this stuff in America.
Well, that's what we should be doing.
Which is a benefit anyway, right? And that, in the end, I think that's really the real goal behind Trump's tariffs.
Well, it's a national security matter,
Right?
Because how did the Allies win World War II? The American industrial complex,
Right? Military industrial.
Well, no, I'm right, but we already had industry.
Yeah, we turned it into
a military machine.
The Ford plants and
exactly.
and steel and
right. I mean, even my grandpa's farm where he had a little lumber mill, that he and his kids ran. Military came in and said, "We're going to take it over." He says, "What are the terms by which you let me still run it?" He said, "You'll have one customer and here's your quota. You meet that quota, you only sell to us, and here's what we're paying." And he said, "I'll take the deal." Yeah. And so my grandma is having every day have these military troops come in, and she's telling these soldiers where to park. She becomes a de facto officer, but that's how they did it.
Yeah.
And in fact, during the war, Franklin Roosevelt raised our top level income tax so high because he needed to suppress the private sector from growing so that he would be able to use everything for the war effort. On Scott, that's what happened. That's why we had those really high top end income tax rates, and Reagan finally brought them down because they were intended to suppress economic growth.
Yeah.
And Reagan said, "Why are we hanging on to these things?" So
I'll tell you something else that influences it a lot. And this is something we talked about earlier. Go back to the stock market. Okay. You've got people invested in foreign companies, a lot of money in India,
right?
China, Europe. And so what happens as we raise these tariffs, your returns on that foreign investment is going to shrink. And so, see, this is something, bottom line, it always ends up the root of all evil, money. So if you follow the trail, it's about money. And, and here in related news to that, Trump accused China of violating the initial trade agreement. They had made a trade agreement and was supposed to go into effect, I think, June 8th or something. Right. But anyway, Beijing was reneging on what they hashed out in May. Following the negotiations, both countries agreed the U.S. will cut its tariffs down against the Chinese imports from 145% to 30%. Yeah. China would reduce its tariffs from 125 to 10. Mm-hmm. And so we are, again, all he is trying to do is level the playing field so that if China sends us something, we're able to, the biggest problem, and it is a national defense issue, is steel. Mm-hmm. Steel. Now, fortunately, what's happened, the Japanese saw the light of day, and so they have bought in now to U.S. Steel, mm-hmm. where they own, I think, 20% or 30% of U.S. Steel. It's still majority American owned, but the Japanese steel and U.S. Steel are merging to have major steel output here in the United States. Yeah. Then we don't have to worry about tariffs. Yeah. We're not importing anything. And if you want to export, if they want our steel, if we have the best steel in the world, people will get it. So these are some of the things that are happening, but you've got these people that are trying to hold out, and it's ridiculous for us to sit there and whine and complain. The sooner we unify and solidify, harden our hearts to stand against the other countries, the sooner they'll crack, come down. Okay, you win. We'll go ahead and go by your terms.
Yeah, in my home, native state, Minnesota, which has always been Democrat, right? The Democrat farmer labor. This steel issue has flipped the northern Minnesota, northeastern, the Arrowhead, very red. Very red. And there's still pockets of very...
Now remind me, what is red? Which one is red?
Yeah. When Trump put the tariffs on in his first term, actually, no, he said the pipeline coming from Canada has to be made with American steel. The guy who stood there in the Oval Office with him was a Democrat congressman, Rick Nolan from Minnesota. And Nolan resigned. I actually didn't run again because he's up there at 70-some years old. And a Republican took that seat and is holding it very consistently now because northern Minnesota is where our biggest deposits of iron ore are and have been for 100 years now. So it's going to affect Minnesota, could affect Minnesota politics.
Oh, yeah.
Which need fixing,
Yeah. And all of the industrial states should just be jumping for joy at this because, auto manufacturing. Now, since Toyota, Hyundai, Honda, and BMW, I know, they're all manufactured here in America now. Some of them.
Mercedes overall is still a majority Germany.
Well, yeah, but they have a plant in North Carolina.
They do. Right. Certain models
BMW as well.
Yeah, certain models are made here.
Right. Yeah. And so those, and those are probably the cheaper and the more sought after. The Uber class may want the ones from Germany. And we've gone through that, how I used to deliver them and get paid to take it down the street. But there's so much involved here. If people will just sit back, relax, and trust the president and his men, man, the sooner we unite behind our president right now, the sooner the world will turn around and everything will get in line. Personally, now that doesn't mean I agree with everything Donald Trump does. It doesn't. You don't agree with it. But when it comes to these, let's put it this way: he's not a billionaire because he doesn't know how to do business. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so here's what's happening on tariffs. Remember his first tariffs, he tied them to fentanyl, right?
With China.
With China, but particularly what he did with Mexico and with Canada.
Right,
because they were coming in through there. He justified it, and it stood because of national security issues. He tried using that same leverage to justify it more globally in this court that you and I never heard about. International Trade Court slapped him down. Now, evidently, they just got overruled by an appeals court. No, it's
the appeals court hadn't even gone to the Supreme Court. Yeah.
So there are plenty other levers for Trump to pull, but Peter Navarro's one of his top guys on that. And I was listening to Peter yesterday. He's just saying, look, there are lots of rationales. We went with this because it was just the cleanest, simplest to start with. But I personally, morally, think that tariffs and stuff like that really, if you long term, you really need to put that in the statutory code to some degree. I think, it's just like the War Powers Act, right? Trump has to be able to respond right away with his troops to a state of emergency. Right. But if you're declaring war, by God, it's got to come from Congress. There's that balance that we got to find here. And I don't know how it's all going to shake out, but I think Congress needs to play a role.
I really is it Scott Bessent?
Yes.
That is his Secretary of Commerce, right?
Is it Commerce or Treasury? It's probably Commerce.
I think it's Commerce.
Yeah. Sharp guy.
And you look at him and he's almost scary. almost scary to see this guy really knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't bend an inch, whenever he's on.
I know I'm blessed to have clients that are some of the top business leaders I know. And one of them, church-going guy, church of guys, he says, that gay guy, what's his name? Because he happens to have a husband.
Scott.
Yeah, Bissett. And anyway, this is the guy that says, we got to get rid of Trump. We got to get rid of Trump, this business leader.
Right, let me interrupt you just to go back. You're right again. He is Treasury.
Treasury. Okay.
And it's Bissett.
Yeah, Bissett.
Bissett. It's Bissett. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, and this guy, he's Church of Christ. I mean, this is a clean cut. He's referred to him as the gay guy. The gay guy. He says, that guy knows his stuff. And so this businessman, church deacon, he says, I really have a problem with Trump, but that gay guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. No, see, that's the difference in last term and this term. He is surrounded by the top-notch people.
Oh, yes.
He must have spent 4 years just finding out who are the best people that I can use for this and this and this.
Right now, he's 3 times the president he was in his first term.
Oh, yeah. First time he had an idea of all he wanted to do. Problem is he didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, he was the apprentice.
And they actually, in some ways, the Democrats really did him a favor by having him sit out for 4 years to think and plan and to prepare for when he was president again.
Yeah. But largely, it's the tariff thing, the immigration thing, and the DEI thing, where you've got the kangaroo courts, federal courts. When you're placed as a federal judge, it's a lifetime tenure.
Yeah.
And the only way they can get rid of you is they'd have to get 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to vote to kick you out.
And that ain't happening.
Exactly. And so these federal judges are just arrogant. And if there's a sedition, it didn't happen January 6th. It's happening now. And it's our federal activist judges.
I'll tell you what, I have to confess, I have actually been tempted to pray that God would kill them all. Mm-hmm. The bad ones.
Yeah. Well, there's a prophecy that actually comes from the Psalms that was quoted as referring to Judas Iscariot that said, may another man take his place. I forget what it is.
Yeah.
And because I remember that verse, it was Psalm something or other. And when Clinton was president, there's a billboard in Arkansas, pray for our president. And they had that verse. It says, may his days be shortened and may another man take his place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've heard that.
I'm just saying, there's scripture to back up whatever you want to believe.
Yeah. I'm not advocating any violence.
Yeah.
But if God wants to do
it's in God's hands, right?
It's in God's hands. And may their days be short in that office. Let's put it one way or another. Okay.
Yeah.
So don't need to necessarily kill him, but maybe disable them to the point where they can't.
By the way, Trump had some, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's good to go. Trump had some advice for attacks of first ladies. You know, Hillary Clinton's known for throwing lamps at Bill in the White House residency. Now we find Macron getting off a plane for an international visit, and his wife accosts him right there as the doors open. And so yesterday they asked Donald Trump, does he have any advice or thoughts on this? And he says, don't let anybody open that door. You got that going.
Until you're ready to leave that airplane.
Yes, you settle your stuff, and that's all Trump would say. He just kind of laughed about it,
Getting back to Elon and Doge and the savings and all. Yeah, like I said, he predicted that the total cuts would amount to $1 trillion in the coming years. He believes that influence is going to continue to grow because his team will still be working.
Yeah.
He just won't be the head of it. But yeah, it's interesting that, and I don't want to revisit that whole thing, but one of the things they found was that where is it? There was an agency. Oh yeah, for example, the IRS. Okay, get this. Now this is crazy. The IRS was paying for 3,000 licenses for software.
Yeah.
Okay, but only used 25.
Yeah.
Not 25%, not 2,500, 25 licenses. So once Doge discovered a way, it cut the remaining 99% of the licenses because they're paying for all of those licenses. So they're paying for 2,950 licenses, basically, right? Or 75, 2,975 licenses they're paying for, but not using them. So this is kind of stupid, silly stuff that we've gotten into, and software licenses are not cheap. Let me put that to you. So these, the more they go, the more they find, and it's just a shame.
Well, it's just
really a shame.
Within these agencies, you don't have enough incentive to be frugal.
Yeah.
And, they've just got these credit cards that the agencies just allow, their employees to use with no validation. They're not asking for receipts. They just get to expense things out and they just pay it.
Yeah.
And it's a culture of corruption on a broad scale.
Oh, it is. It is. Money, money, money. Moving on again, the band Imagine Dragons. Do you know Imagine Dragons? You've heard of them? They're a pretty big group.
Okay.
But see, this is what gets me. I think a lot of artists, entertainers, music groups, some are true believers, some are diehard, like Bruce Springsteen. He is truly a genuine idiot.
Yeah.
Okay. But others, I believe, in the case of Imagine Dragons, for example, does things to help their popularity, because their music would not be as popular if they, like you'll have a one-hit wonder or a flash in the pan, maybe one album or something, and boom, you don't hear from them again. I think that's what's going on here. The band Imagine Dragons set social media ablaze after waving a Palestinian flag at a Milan concert. And the band leader is Dan Reynolds. He waved this Palestinian flag on stage during that concert, and video clips have him picking the flag up, waving it, draped across his shoulder at the concert, and racked up millions of views and drew mixed reactions. The same guy, they did a concert in Israel just last year. So if you were such a purist, you wouldn't have done a concert last year in Israel when it was even a hotter issue, when they were actually in Palestine, clearing it out, you know. And so there's a big, but honestly, I believe it's publicity stunt, personally.
That's just it. You've been in this industry, Eddie. You owned a record label and stuff. In the leeches that come and off you, we will be your PR agent, for your, and they'll sign these deals to make somebody look like a religious giant and, just profound individual. And they'll write articles that, I've seen it where the artist didn't even know the article got printed and was supposedly interviewing him. And the PR agent just filled in all the answers to the questions.
Right.
And it's cowardly because they're waiting, licking their fingers, sticking up which way's the wind blowing. Okay, let's get ahead of it. And everybody will think we're just these, phenomenal people. Yeah. They're followers.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. They're just media whores.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that fits the description right there. It's funny because on the other side, they say that they were kind of being the converse of Radiohead. Radioheads, they've been around a lot longer.
Oh yeah.
But they've not. They say Radiohead has now been lapped by Imagine Dragons, said Bill Lee, the comedian. He was referring to the band Radiohead told off an anti-Israeli heckler during a show last year. They had an anti-Israeli heckler that was trying to, come against Israel at the concert, and the guy, they just told him off, So, but now we've got the other side.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's really funny if nothing else will confirm the Bible. Just the hatred for the Jews should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's prophesied, it's spoken of, and it's a continual deal. And the baby brother and sister of the Jews is Christians. And it laps in. The sad thing is that the Jews were among those to attack the Christians, but now, I think we're seeing that the Jews should lighten up on the Christians. Let's put that, because the true Christians are defenders of Israel.
Yeah.
Now, we could get into the whole deal of Zionism. Where do you stand on Zionism?
It depends how you define it.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think, should people have a homeland? Yes, but so should the Palestinians have a homeland. If they got along with their neighbors, they'd have a homeland by now. The Palestinians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
but they allowed themselves to be taken over by terrorist groups.
Yeah.
That's why they don't get nice things, And I mean, look, you and I talk about the scourge of tribalism, where you treat others bad because they're not in your tribe. And Christ calls us to be salt of the earth. And that's why in the Holy Land, my first allegiance is with the Christians. Yeah. Amongst the Jews and the Palestinians. Right. They're Christians in both. They're called to be salt and light, but they're being persecuted by the Jews and the Palestinians because they're minority. And I don't see enough of that. I do know that there are religious groups, religious leaders who are bought and paid for by the Israeli state to push things. I think goes too far. One of the biggest funding sources for Newsmax is this organization trying to tell Christians the Christian things to do is to feed the Jews. I think it's to feed the starving people, whether they be Jews or Palestinian. And nobody's raising money to feed the Palestinians.
Okay, but to be fair, how many of those Jewish relief organizations do you get mail from?
I don't get mail from any of them. Okay. But I'm saying when you watch Newsmax, you're going to see those every hour.
Yeah.
And obviously they're working because they wouldn't keep buying advertising.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is the some for the Christians and Jews.
Yes.
It's a combined.
Right, but their messaging is to Christians. If you listen to the dialogue.
Oh no, I agree. And some of the the older women that they show,
right.
You just can't even believe that those people are still alive.
It's slick marketing.
I have to say that some of the women remind me of my grandmother.
Yes.
Just like my grandmother. And she didn't live far from that poverty that these women are in.
Exactly.
So I can relate in that.
Paul says, as much lies within you, live at peace with all men. Do good to others, especially those of the household of faith.
Right.
Okay? And he wasn't talking about Judaism there. Is like belief in Christ. Your Christian brother and sister, you have particular interest in taking care of them.
First.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, as I look at Christendom in the first world, America, Europe, Scandinavia, even South America, to be honest with you, Christendom is not hurting. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have a bunch of starving Christians.
Not here, but you do have it in the Palestinian territories and the persecution of Christian groups in Israel proper.
Right. But see, that's just it. Those people in those areas, they know what everything's relative. Okay. They know what they're dealing with daily. That's their home. They choose it as their home. They want to stay there in their home. And so that's just, it's not like the ones in Russia where they were trying to kill you and get you out of the country.
Yeah, the Christian population in the West Bank and Gaza is, as of 2 years ago, it was 1/4 of what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It dropped that much. That means they no longer feel safe. They're getting out.
Right. And it wasn't as a result of Israel attacking 10 years ago. It was as a result of the persecution under the PLO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Lebanon, I mean, every country over there. In fact, this is the craziest thing. Probably the safest place for Christians in the Middle East is maybe Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's how the rule is in Iran. Basically, you can be a Christian and practice your Christianity. There are churches in Iran. The only thing is you cannot proselytize.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go out and street witness or go door to door, do tracts, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to go to church, they've got churches there in Iran where the Christians can go to church and worship and everything. Just don't be proselytizing and trying to convert.
And Iraq under Saddam Hussein was much the same way. Mm-hmm. In fact, his foreign minister was a Christian.
Right. Yeah, even more so. Yeah. He actually protected the Christians more than.
And they had a Jewish population there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, but he was still sending scuds over. Now that was just to work up the Arabs to get on his side.
Yeah.
You know,
he was a scud.
Yeah. He's a nasty guy. Yeah. But, you know, so I don't know if I answer your question about Zionism and stuff. I feel like, first of all, my brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yeah. See, Zionism to me is a bit like what is portrayed as Christian nationalism.
Okay.
Which it's intended to sound like Nazism. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Zionism, to me, is saying that we are a Jewish nation. We believe in one God, you know, and in Moses, the teachings of Moses and the prophets. Okay. Yeah. That is true Zionism. They believe that God gave them that land, mm-hmm. and they have a right to that land against all others. Now you got different versions. You got the super radical Zionists that want to go back to just it's not biblical because what does it say in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy? Basically, it says, and even Joshua, that if they want to stay in your land and don't do them any harm. Like, in other words,
be kind to the visitors, the sojourners, because you were once sojourners.
Exactly. So if you're not trying to turn us away from our God, you're good to go.
Yeah.
And okay, so if that's the Zionism I'm talking about. Yeah. And I'll let God deal with revealing himself through Jesus Christ to them. Okay. So I'm not so upset about that. And it's just like what we consider, or what is being put forth as Christian nationalism, that if you believe in Christianity to the exclusion of all other faiths, you are basically a Nazi. And if you're trying to push your beliefs on others, you're a Nazi. No, it just means I believe strongly enough that I want to tell others about it and see them see the light. That's all it means.
Yeah.
We're not going to force anybody to do anything.
There you go.
And if you want to reject it, reject it. But I've done my job. I have told you that there's one God and revealed himself through his son, Jesus Christ.
John Ashcroft had the best, most succinct answer when he was up for approval in the Senate as Attorney General. He's the son of Assembly God minister from Missouri. And they asked him about imposing his religion. And he said, Senator, it is against my religion to impose my religion on anyone. Isn't that the slickest way to put it?
Yeah, that is exactly right. We will not force. No. Jesus stands at the door and knocks. You've got to open the door.
Yeah.
That's the message that needs to be really centered and focused on, that he stands at the door. He's trying to reach you. If you want to reject him, you do it at your own peril.
Yeah. Now, as far as public policy and the neutrality of public policy, I largely agree with that principle. And we saw it here in a Supreme Court ruling. We haven't talked about this. They were deadlocked,
the Catholic
4-4 on an Oklahoma Catholic charter school, where you're going to use government money for a out-and-out sectarian education. You're teaching Catholic doctrine as part of that educational package.
But see, I don't really think that's. I don't even think they do that at Bishop Kelly. See, that's what we think is going on at a Catholic school. But well, no, let me just finish. As I understand it, that the religious instruction part was done extracurricularly after school. So,
see, I think in you and I, both watched Epic. Mm-hmm. A church that I've known, Springs of Grace, kind of independent Baptist, Joe Blankenship. Mm-hmm. He went to Epic and said, look, I got all these kids here. We're doing a homeschool support group at the church. Most of these kids are from single parent homes, and it's either this or they're back at McLean.
Right.
So Epic paid for the Wi-Fi at the church, paid for all their curriculum and hired teachers to teach there. If Joe wanted to teach a religion class as an elective, he could do it, but it wasn't part of the state-funded package.
Right.
And that's a religious organization ought to be able to apply for the same thing that secular organizations do.
I agree.
Like there's a charter school that TU sponsors. They're a private university. And if they have a right to do it, then a religious group should have a right to do it.
I agree.
But it's the curriculum that's imposed.
Exactly. And see, that's the issue. If the Catholic school that is trying to be state funded is teaching Catholic dogma, then under separation of church and state, which I disagree with. I don't think that's what it was intended to mean, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt right now. Even though if they're not teaching Catholic dogma during the core of the school, more power to them.
Exactly. And so
the state should have nothing.
It's a thin line, but it's an important line.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So
and see, here's the thing. Most Catholic schools, this is what's weird. It would be something if the kids came out of there uneducated. Mm-hmm. So apparently they're doing something right, because you take Bishop Kelly, you take Montecasino, you take the different Catholic schools around, and those kids tend to excel more, get accepted to colleges and scholarships and more than your average public school.
Yeah.
So, what are you afraid of?
Their funding is about 40% lower than Tulsa public schools.
Exactly. And I don't see most of those kids turning into rabid priests and nuns and everything,
But one day I'm on the sideline there at Union Tuttle Stadium. The homeschool team has taken on the JV last game of the season. And one of the referees, I get to talking to him. he said, well, I did have my kids at Bishop Kelly. I couldn't afford it. And he's a single dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he went and talked to the bishop. He was really irate. He said, I grew up when Catholic schools were a ministry of the church. He said, they didn't have any means testing at Bishop Kelly if I couldn't come up with FOMA. And he said, I'm telling you, Bishop, you're going to be running a business, educating a bunch of rich Protestants. And in a large percentage of their student bodies, Protestants go there because it's a good education.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so that should show you right there. Apparently, the Catholic dogma is not having much of an influence if it's even being preached there, So, no, I agree totally. That's one of those deals. And it's tragic that people have such an animus towards Christianity.
Yeah.
That everything is seen as a threat.
Yeah.
Everything is seen as a threat. I was
talking to a radical leftist on Facebook. She kept blasting, Christian nationalism. I said, how is it different than Muslim nationalism? Or she says, well, Muslim nationalism's not threatening me. I said, is it a threat in and of itself? So it was just a line to disparage.
Yeah.
Because it was impeding her agenda for America.
Right. Which is silly. They don't even, they hate the Judeo-Christian background of America and our founding so much that they're willing to sacrifice it to any other culture that it would. And that's again, back to the thing. I don't get it. How these people, it has to be a supernatural thing, Dave, for them to be so blinded. It has to be that in itself. In fact, it's funny. Atheists are almost the greatest witness for Christianity.
Yeah.
Because you hate God so much that if you really didn't believe he was there, you would not be hating him and doing so much against it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost, they make the argument within their own hatred and distaste and everything they're trying to do against faith to make the case for faith.
Yeah. Look at all the Middle Eastern Arab Somalis, all these different bunches, Yemen and all that. That Obama and Biden been bringing over here mass numbers, mass immigration. And they're believing a creed that is very much against the Democrat Party platform, gay rights, things like that.
Women's rights.
But so it's not an ideology thing. It's a strategy to break down America. And so that they can usher in their replacement. Yeah. And these people are just being used as a tool. Which, by the way, huge immigration thing happened yesterday. The courts decided that this special status, all these plane loads that came in from 4 countries, all those 500,000 of them, Trump can on his own decide to remove that special status that allows him to work, get Medicaid, get all kinds of government funding.
It's got to happen. Got to happen.
Okay. Boom. That's 500,000 people off of the welfare rolls. 500,000 people, that's undermining our job market.
Yeah, exactly. No, they've got to go.
So anyway, so that was a huge win for Trump. In fact, Justice Kagan agreed with the conservatives. It was a 7-2 decision.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to, as we have a little more time and we'll switch here, remind people again of Legacy Alarms.
Yeah.
The office here with us, and a new startup. They have background coming from some of the ADT and what's the other, Guardian.
Yeah.
The two guys, they've started this company, and so it would be a good time to try to get in on this and check them out. Okay.
Go with the local independent security.
Yeah. And the number here, 918-9210. 918-922-1010. 922-1010. If it's easier for you to remember that way. Okay.
LegacyAlarmsOK.com.
Hey, let's wrap it up here with some sports.
Oh, yeah. So we've got, first of all, hockey. How's your son's team doing?
They're doing well. They're back in the finals again. Of course, so is Edmonton. It's the same Stanley Cup final as last year. But
this was no cakewalk for any of the teams.
Well, what's funny, this last series in particular, they were winning by an average of 3 goals a game or more. Some of them, one game was 6-1. They had 3 games against Carolina. They had like 3 games with 5 or more points. Against Carolina. It was pretty tough butt whipping.
Yeah, well, they started out, I think they went up 2-0 on Carolina, didn't they?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, oh my God. And
no, I'm sorry. It was 1-1.
Oh, okay. So it was back and forth.
And then they won. How did that? No, you may be right. Maybe 2-0 because they lost one at home. That's what happened. Yeah, you're right. Because it was 3-1.
Yeah.
And then they gave up one more. And then they ended up winning 4-2.
4-2. Yeah. So it was 3-2 and then I'm watching the other night, they're down 2 goals. Oh my God, they've lost momentum here. But then they came back and won 6-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
To finally get a berth they get to defend their Stanley Cup.
Right.
And now I know you've got to hold the Stanley Cup or be there by it.
And drink beer out of it.
Drink beer out of it. He desecrated it. Yes.
No, apparently I found out it's a tradition.
Yeah.
They fill the cup. The Stanley Cup is this large. Actually, it's segmented because when they run out of room for put all the names of the teams, they put another layer.
Yeah, this is a traveling cup. You don't get to keep it.
No. But at the top, it is literally this giant silver cup. Mm-hmm. It's probably about 12 inches in diameter.
Yeah.
And then they fill it with beer, and then men, women.
Yeah.
You name it. Men, women, children. No, I'm just kidding. And they have 2 people on either side, one on either side, holding it while the person's underneath.
Yeah. They have full-time security.
It almost, no, I'm talking about the players.
Okay.
Players and guests at the event.
Yeah.
Hold it. The guys the security, it travels with security everywhere it goes internationally. Yeah. And the Swedish players, they get to have it in their hometown. Mm-hmm. If you're from Denmark, Finland, Germany, they fly it wherever. And these 2 guys carry this thing around. But it's, man, I lost my train of thought. There was something I was going to say about it. It's gone. But anyway, it's quite an experience to have the cup and other people where my son had his cup day. Each player gets a cup day. You get a day with the cup. Right. And he had it at the Hard Rock Cafe in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. And
didn't your other son from Tulsa here go down too? Or
yeah, he went. He's a big fan, and in fact, he was designing a new dining facility for them. But anyway, the Hard Rock there, the way it has a private area which is separated by a moat. Yeah. And it was so funny because they set up the cup up high on this thing, and you look across the moat, and all of the Hard Rock Hotel guests and casino guests they're all looking across, seeing and people they're getting their picture with the cup in the background. It shows how much the cup is known and respected. And, to us, we've never been, I don't even think I'd feel that way about the Super Bowl. Yeah. It's a trophy, it's another trophy.
Yeah, but every team gets a trophy they keep. This is one cup.
Yeah, it travels.
You get to.
Yeah, there is a cup you get to keep if you have the best record
Okay.
It's called the President's Cup.
Okay.
And that's one you get to keep.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're going to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
It'd be like winning in the NBA or NFL if they had another cup for the team that year that had the best season.
Yeah.
And then they have the Super Bowl trophy.
Okay. So here's the international games they had in the middle of the season that turned into quite the nationalistic outpouring because the Canadians were booing the U.S. national anthem up there. So we're probably going to see some more of that. Although Edmonton is a very conservative province, but that'll be interesting to see. I'm going to be rooting for Florida for sure. I definitely would have if it would have been against the Stars. And you know why? Because the Stars, the hated Stars,
the North Stars,
they used to be the North Stars.
Now they're the South Stars.
Us.
Now they're the South Stars.
Yeah.
It's funny they just dropped the location, the South off of it.
It's kind of hard to call yourself North Stars living in Dallas.
But you could be the South Stars.
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
Hey, how about softball? What's going on?
Well,
OU, oh man, it came close the other day when the last hitter, the last out, basically, which would have been the last out, which he hit a walk-off home run.
Yeah, 3-run homer.
3-run homer.
We were down 2 runs.
Yeah.
Somehow got a couple of people on, but 2 outs, and Ella Parker will be remembered for a long time because, she belted that thing in deep center field.
Can you imagine being the pitcher?
Yeah.
And thinking that one pitch lost the team and put you out of the World Series?
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, Tennessee in the loser bracket, because it's double elimination.
Oh, so we're not that far. We're just going to the
Tennessee then won yesterday, defeated Florida. So Florida goes home, which I'm glad because the end of the regular season, we had an away series at Florida. Lost 2 out of 3. OU did. I'm a little bit nervous about Florida, but they're gone. The other one I was nervous about was Alabama, but Ole Miss beat them. And now Ole Miss is a loser bracket. They lost to Oregon. So Oregon is in it. Get this. OU is the easternmost team left, I think. Because you got
in the winner's bracket.
In the winner's bracket, right. Tennessee may come back. Oregon, Tennessee would have to beat Oregon. But other than that.
So how many teams are in the winner's bracket?
There's 4.
There's
Texas, Texas Tech, OU, and help me out here. Was it UCLA? I think it's UCLA. Yeah.
Well, isn't that funny you're right. They're all either Big Ten or Pac-10.
Right, but they're South Central and westward.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But if you got Texas and Oklahoma.
2 Texas teams.
Yeah, well, Texas Tech and UCLA. Mm-hmm. There's no Eastern teams in there.
Unless Tennessee comes back.
Well, no, I meant in the winner's bracket.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
who's in the loser's bracket? How many teams in it? 4 in there.
So the way it's going to go now is that loser bracket. It was Oregon and Tennessee, both won in the elimination round on the loser bracket, so they're still alive.
A&M is still there.
Not A&M.
Oh, okay, good. No. They're gone.
Yeah,
because they were ahead of OU
they lost early. They lost in regionals, not even super regionals.
That's
regionals
funny.
They lost. Yeah. So here's where I'm getting at. So here in an hour or so, maybe less, it's the Red River rivalry. Texas and OU, who were the final 2 teams last year, right? And very tough. In fact, Texas was rated 1, OU is number 2 last year in that. So whoever loses will take on either Oregon or Tennessee. I'll find out. And then on the other one, where your alma mater
UCLA
is
and
taking
Texas Tech.
Whoever loses that will have to take on the other, Oregon or Tennessee. And then you'll have your winner bracket final, will be, the two teams that win.
Semis, basically. You'll have.
You would think it's finals, except because we're in, elimination round.
Right.
So let's say it's OU and Texas Tech end up in that game. Whoever loses that will then play the champion of the loser bracket and would have to lose. I don't know if it's twice or once. I think it's 2
out of 3.
Yeah, I know they reset it for the finals. Right. It's 2 out of 3. So let's say,
well, you'd have to do 2 out of 3 to make it fair, to let that team lose 2 and the other one win.
But what I'm saying is, if it's OU and Texas Tech,
right,
and let's say OU loses that, now they've got a loss, and they're taking on whoever's left of the one loss teams.
Right.
It's just one game there.
Oh, yeah, because they've already fought it out.
Right.
Right, sure.
And then whoever wins that game gets a rematch against, say, Texas Tech. If Tech, continues to win out, so you likely have to play one team twice, but when you do that final, they erase everybody's losses and do a best 2 out of 3 for that. Mm-hmm. So, now they're spreading this tournament out. Like yesterday, we only had 2 games. Today, we're only doing 2 games. We used to do 4 in this. We used to try to compact it. Now, I think they're getting enough TV money and say, by God, let's spread this out a little bit. Plus, rain delays have always been a problem. In fact, one of the comments I have, I was listening to it on the radio, is the Westwood One is doing neutral broadcasts. And they said, now think about it. This is Oregon against Ole Miss. If you come here from Ole Miss, your body clock is maybe 3 hours ahead of the Oregon players. So it was like 11:30 at night. Now that game went 10 innings, and those kids on the West Coast, it's still like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Yeah. Ole Miss, are they still in it?
In the loser bracket.
Well,
or no, they go home now. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, because if they lost to UCLA and Texas Tech.
Right, yeah. Them and Florida are the only 2 teams out. Out of the 8, we're down to 6 that are still live.
Okay.
Florida and Ole Miss. Now, keep in mind, Florida was number 3 in the rankings.
Yeah.
Ole Miss was an unranked team, so, it's an interesting deal.
So we've got, basically, in the winners bracket, you've got 2. Well, no, UCLA is not in the Big 12. No, they went into their
Big 10.
Big 10. Yeah, they're Big 10 now, right? So, okay.
So you got 2 SEC teams, a Big 12 team, and a Big 10 team.
Right.
Yeah, ACC is out. I mean, Clemson's gone. Florida State's gone. In fact, Florida State, I forget who beat them. Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, it's exciting. And sadly, it's ESPN, but Westwood One does the radio, and they do a really good job.
Yeah, they've done it for years.
I like to listen to KREF Norman, Jeff Plank. I think it's their play-by-play.
I just listen to Sirius XM.
Yeah, but Plank does a great job of covering them. So, by the way, NBA. The Thunder in the championship.
Thunder, go Thunder.
Yeah, I was listening to sports radio, actually Sports Animal this morning. They're nauseated that Indiana Pacers versus the Knicks, and they're playing a game in New York. And the announcer, ladies and gentlemen, and they just say, and they start naming these celebrities in the crowd. These celebrities said. And he said, it's like a WWE thing. And I was like, that's why I don't want the Knicks in.
No, I hope the Pacers get rid of them. In fact, I'm kind of an Indiana fan. I want Indiana and Thunder, and then Thunder win it. But yeah, we got to get rid of. I'm an Indiana fan now, mainly because of the girls' team or the women's team. And then it's bled over to the men, it seems.
So do they pair a women's team with a man's team in association?
No. They're just Indiana has two teams, the Pacers and the Caitlin Clark's team, whatever it is. Yeah.
I got a couple things I got to mention here. So our friend David Arnett, he and I were sitting together at the breakfast meeting last Saturday morning. John Eccles, running for Attorney General's, and he, David Arnett's reporting that Cox Media Group, KRMG, the granddaddy, right, a radio in Oklahoma, they're in negotiations and seeking Federal Trade Commission approval to sell Cox Media, including KRMG, to Robert Zellner.
Ooh.
Now, Robert had a great radio program, Thrive Time. It was very much business and finance, and with Clay Clark,
right,
and
KFAQ back.
Yeah,
KFAQ.
But I'm telling you, I think this will be a huge thing to get back our radio station to be Oklahoma owned. We do not have talk radio in Oklahoma.
No,
it just doesn't.
No,
exist.
It would be incredible. Yeah, if they do that, it would be real good. I may even apply.
Yeah, there we go. There's one last thing. The legislature adjourned yesterday, signed to die. They're out. But one last dig, Governor Stitt and the Senate leadership, it's like Greg Treat still lives on because they passed some resolution, both the House and Senate, condemning and calling for the resignation of our mental health commissioner. We got two things going on mental health. One, millions of dollars in debt. They have unpaid invoices and they're planning to use next year's money to pay this year's bills. And so they're calling for an investigation and everything on that. And then somebody new taking over. Here's the problem. The person Stitt tapped to be the new commissioner, she's got her own scandal. She's been touting herself as a licensed professional therapist when her licensing is all expired years ago. And she has not, but she still uses that claim. It's a false claim. What would they do to you if you claim to be a bar-approved attorney or claim to be a state medical doctor approved, practicing without a license or even claiming to have a license?
Even an insurance agent have to have a license.
Exactly. I think she's morally unfit to lead. That's what they called for. Instead, in response, said, this is a distraction. The person you should be condemning is the financial director over there, who happens to be married to one of you senators, Racino. And I'm like, okay, it's not an either or.
Right. I agree.
Both are problems.
Yeah, for him to even try to defend her is wrong. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking.
So for that reason, I'll sign up with this. I have a new name for our state capital. It's called the Kindergarten at Lincoln and 23rd because they're acting so childish. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even get into him firing the board. Remember, he had a board of education.
Yeah.
The state.
Yeah, our friend Don Burdick. Boom. What'd I do wrong? Nothing. It's just that I'm just trying to get at the superintendent.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah. You can fire these people because you're upset with this guy.
I'm telling you.
It's like you said, kindergarten.
It's kindergarten on Lincoln.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's so sad. Yeah.
And I had such hope for him. I supported him all the way.
His first term was good.
Yeah.
So that I pretty much covered all my stuff. Good.
Well, good. He covered all of his stuff. So.
Yeah. How about you?
I'm good too. I really don't have anything else. Just tell everybody to keep praying for our country and our leadership, and things will work out.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for this week. Contact us at freshblack.coffee.
Yeah.
or freshblackcoffee@gmail.com. Either way, can we get emails directly at freshblack.coffee?
Yeah.
There's a link?
Mhm.
Yeah. So just use the freshblack.coffee. That'll take you to our site. And on there's a place to be able to.
Just David or Eddie.
Yeah.
Hey, we have a catch-all anyway for email. But yeah, good. We'll see you down the road.
Bless you, my friend. That's all, folks.